Theists like William Lane Craig, Dominic Non-Tennant, Stuart McEwen, and apparently Cartesian theists hold that God is an immaterial mind. They apparently fail to realize that this means theism is fallacious and falsified on two counts. First, theism commits the fallacy of circular videosis, and this then leads to the fallacy of the stolen concept. This is because saying that in the beginning an immaterial mind created all reality distinct from itself means that at one point consciousness was conscious of nothing but itself. But this is impossible since it posits the primacy of consciousness over the primacy of existence and is a fallacy of circular videosis. Consciousness / a mind cannot have primacy over existence since existence is absolute, universal, and presupposed by all things in reality. To see this is the case, realize that something can exist and not be conscious, but something can't be conscious and not exist. That logically proves that existence is more fundamental than consciousness / a mind. This means that existence has hierarchy or primacy over all things, including a mind. Such a claim by theists is a fallacy of circular videosis, because for something to be conscious, it has to have something external to itself to be conscious of. To say otherwise is a contradiction in terms. Consciousness is a faculty that perceives what exists. To be conscious is to perceive something. This means consciousness requires something external to itself before it can identify itself as being conscious. Why is that? Because you cannot be conscious of nothing, as nothing has no attributes to be aware of. One can't be conscious of their own consciousness, since that contradicts the very nature of said faculty and grounds it in circularity, because consciousness requires an external referent to establish meaning. Without that, it's meaningless, which is what a vicious circle is, a meaningless redundancy. To illustrate this further, let's look at a graphic of what is circular reasoning. Here we have a vicious circle of circular reasoning works because circular reasoning works. Why is this a vicious circle? Because it has no ground outside itself, which makes it meaningless. It's a vicious circle because it refers to its own referring. Now, replace that with what theism posits. It posits that before the creation of the universe, God was conscious only of his own consciousness, since there was nothing else to existence in reality other than God, and God supposedly created all of reality distinct from himself. This means that you have a consciousness conscious of nothing but its own consciousness. Why is that a vicious circle fallacy? Because such a dynamic has no ground outside itself. Consciousness, being conscious only of itself, simply refers to its own referring, which, as just previously identified, is what makes something a vicious circle. Theism at its core is similar to saying this statement is true. Again, you have a meaningless statement because it has no ground outside of itself for its truth. It simply refers to its own referring. This shows why reality and facts can't be grounded on the subjective or the mind. Reality cannot have its start or be created by the subjective, which is what a mind / consciousness is, consistent with the subject-object relationship epistemology. Why is this? Because when you say something is true or a fact, you are automatically implying and espousing that it is true and factual, irrespective of what is thought about that fact, perceived about that fact, wished about that fact, known or not known about that fact, or whether it's approved or disapproved of. You are saying that this fact is a fact independent of a mind / consciousness. Thus, theism is necessarily false, since it's grounded on fallacy, and this cements that existence, not a mind, is the only irreducible primary upon which all things in reality presuppose. Which thus means not only is theism false because it commits the fallacy of circular videosis, but it then commits the fallacy of the stolen concept by placing intentional operations prior to their genetic preconditions.